Something feels off. I try to pinch my cheeks to ward off the sudden wave of sleepiness, but it's utterly ineffective. There wasn't anything particularly exhausting about today, just a meal at my in-laws', and I'm not usually short on sleep. Why then, I wondered drowsily, when I hear my husband's laughter. Good night, I'll make sure you have sweet dreams. My name is Michelle, a 24-year-old office worker, newly married to Joseph, who is 5 years my senior. We met through a friend, and after dating for 2 years, we're happily married. We had a grand wedding recently and received blessings from many people. Just as I was dreaming about our happy married life ahead, an unexpected misfortune struck. Ruby, my mother-in-law, suddenly fell ill and passed away in no time. Ruby was cheerful and very kind, delighted when I first went to greet her. Nice to meet you. I'm Michelle. Oh, what a joy to have such a lovely woman as my son's wife. I've always dreamed of having tea time with my son's wife. I'd be delighted. Please, let's have tea time together. Though I was nervous, Ruby welcomed me with a full smile, making me feel at ease and fond of her. We had planned to have tea time together after the wedding settled down, but that dream was shattered with Ruby's passing. We were busy with Ruby's funeral, sorting out her belongings, and handling the inheritance, finally settling down a year later. Then, I got a call from David, my father-in-law. Michelle, how about a meal at our house next weekend night? I'm thinking of ordering takeout. Yes, of course. Thank you. So, I was invited to dine with David next weekend night, along with Joseph. David ordered Singaporean cuisine, which he loves, and we enjoyed the feast. The three of us gathered around the dining table. It was my first time trying Singaporean cuisine, and everything was delicious. Except the soup tasted oddly. Curious, I asked my husband, "Hey Joseph, doesn't this soup taste a bit strange?" That's just how this dish is. You're not used to Singaporean cuisine, haha. Though Joseph laughed it off. I couldn't stomach the soup, so I avoided it and ate the other dishes. Then, I felt David's sharp gaze. Michelle, I went through the trouble of ordering this, so make sure you drink the soup. Startled by David's outburst, I hurriedly gulped down the soup. It still tasted weird. The strange taste spread throughout my mouth, and I tried to cleanse my palate with water and other dishes. Gradually, my vision blurred, and I found myself slumping over the table. What's happening? I'm incredibly sleepy. This isn't good. I'll really fall asleep. I need to stay awake. As my consciousness faded, I could hear Joseph's laughter. It seems to have worked. Dad, is that thing ready? Of course, it's all set. It's in the dresser drawer in the bedroom. The new ones are amazing. Only 0.01 millimeters thick. We didn't have those when I was young. Realizing Joseph and David were discussing contraceptives, I felt a sense of danger, but then lost consciousness completely. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. What happened? I murmured groggily. Oh, thank goodness. You're awake. Looking towards the voice, there was our neighbor, Luella. Luella immediately called the doctor, who explained that I had been given a large dose of sleeping pills. Sleeping pills. So that's why the soup tasted so odd. Then I learned from Luella. Your dad and husband ran off in the car, so I accompanied you in the ambulance. I'm so glad you woke up safely. Really? Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the trouble. But what do you mean Dad and my husband fled in a car? Actually, Luella found out that the fire alarm was ringing at my in-laws' house, and it wouldn't stop, so she decided to check on them. When she rang the doorbell, David came out. Yes. What's going on, ringing the fire alarm like this? It's been going off for so long. Haven't you found the source yet? This is serious. I'm coming in. Please, it's okay. Don't come into the house. What are you talking about? We're supposed to help each other out in times of need. Loella said that, barging into the house, and found me lying listlessly in the living room. Oh my, you've collapsed from inhaling smoke. This is terrible. I need to call an ambulance right away. No, this is different. David and my husband tried to deny it hastily, but Loella was convinced I had collapsed from smoke inhalation and called for emergency and fire services on the spot. Michelle is just sleeping. That's right. My wife is just tired and sleeping. There's nothing to worry about. Despite their desperate explanations, Loella objected. It's strange that she won't wake up with such a loud noise going on. I'm worried. I wonder if the ambulance will arrive soon. Loella was frantic. Before we knew it, people had started gathering. Joseph and David began to sweat profusely. Soon after, Joseph and David hurriedly jumped into a car and fled, leaving me behind. That's why Loella ended up accompanying me in the ambulance. Such a thing. Thank you so much. I expressed my gratitude to Loella. Then, when I told the doctor about the conversation I heard between Joseph and David before losing consciousness, he grimaced and made a call, and I was informed that Joseph and David were also admitted to the same hospital. Joseph and Dad are hospitalized. Why? Apparently, after fleeing the house in the car, Joseph and David were driving frantically to get as far away as possible. As a result, the car Joseph was driving crashed into the wall of a mansion, causing an accident. Both were brought to this hospital by ambulance, severely injured with broken bones, but their lives were not in danger. Hearing the reason for their admission, I was overwhelmed with anger, disgust, and various other emotions. They got what they deserved. I'll never forgive them. I decided to hire a lawyer and sue over this incident. Then, sleeping pills were detected in the soup bowl I had finished, and Joseph and David were arrested for assault. The news even reported on the incident. Later, during the police investigation, they were rearrested for attempted rape. David was stressed from being busy with Ruby's funeral and other matters, becoming frustrated. He was planning to visit a nightclub, but when Joseph found out, he made a proposition to David. Dad, if you're that frustrated, I can lend you Michelle, but in return, give me Mom's kimonos. Really? I'd be thrilled to be with young Michelle, but why Mom's kimonos? Are you running out of money? Yeah, I kinda blew through my savings. Joseph had squandered his savings on gambling and offered me in exchange for Ruby's kimonos, which came from a distinguished family and were valuable. Joseph knew this and proposed the trade to David. Michelle doesn't know I'm hooked on gambling. I've used quite a bit from our joint savings account, so I want to cover it up before she finds out. I see, but I can't imagine Michelle agreeing to be with me. That's okay. I have a good idea. You still have some of Mom's sleeping pills, right? Ruby had been prescribed sleeping pills for her insomnia before she passed away. With those sleeping pills remaining, Joseph and David concocted their plan. They decided to dissolve powdered sleeping pills in the soup and proceed after I had fallen asleep. Perfect plan, right? This way, I get money, and Dad's frustration is relieved. It's all good. Right. Let's invite Michelle over for a dinner party next weekend. However, their scheme was abruptly foiled by the ringing of the fire alarm, leading to the foolish outcome of causing an accident in their haste to flee in the car. It turns out Joseph and David are hospitalized in the same room. Damn it. How did it come to this? It was supposed to be a perfect plan. If only the fire alarm hadn't gone off. In the end, we couldn't do anything with Michelle and ended up getting seriously injured. What a mess. Damn it. As they openly wept and voiced their grievances, a nurse visiting their room informed them with displeasure. I had demanded compensation through a lawyer in the divorce proceedings, but both of them flatly refused to pay any settlement for the divorce. to demand compensation from me, her husband, in a divorce trial. Nothing actually happened, so it should be fine. That's right. In the end, all we did was give Michelle sleeping pills and nothing else. Both their reasoning left me and my lawyer utterly dumbfounded. Even when told that administering sleeping pills without consent is unacceptable, they wouldn't listen at all. Moreover, hey, Michelle, tell the police not to sue me and Dad. If the victim asks for a non-prosecution, the police won't sue, right? They had the audacity to command. How low could they possibly be? I continued to ignore them, but they persistently demanded not to sue and to ask for a lighter sentence. However, their demands suddenly stopped at one point. After giving orders every day, it was strange for them to suddenly cease. Curious, I decided to investigate. It turns out they had encountered a serious problem. The owner of the mansion, whose wall was destroyed when Joseph and David crashed into it, was furious and had demanded they pay for the repairs. The damage was extensive, so the cost of repairs was significant. Moreover, my husband had lied, saying, "We were rushing to the hospital because Dad was suffering from an illness, and that led to the driving mistake." However, the incident was reported in the news. Upon learning the truth, the mansion owner became even more enraged and insisted on receiving both the repair costs and compensation from the divorce trial. As a result, Joseph and David seemed to have bigger problems than just dealing with me. It wasn't on purpose. Please forgive us. We beg you. Joseph and David were pleading, but the mansion owner was unforgiving. They were told they must pay no matter what. Since the mansion owner hired a lawyer, Joseph and David also had to hire one to handle the situation. Since I had a lawyer as well, the compensation for the divorce was smoothly negotiated between the lawyers. Given their clear wrongdoing, our demands were almost fully met. I also demanded and received the money Joseph had misappropriated from our joint savings account. Although I hadn't noticed his gambling addiction, I remembered how his overtime had suddenly increased at one point. Probably he was lying about working late and going to pachinko instead. And so, I naturally proceeded with the divorce from Joseph. The negotiations were handled by our lawyers, and though initially reluctant, Joseph agreed to the divorce when I firmly insisted. Joseph's lawyer played a significant role by convincing them that they were in a very unfavorable position and needed to show sincerity. Later, I went to thank our neighbor Loella again. Thank you so much. I don't know how to express my gratitude. Oh, I didn't do anything special. It's good that you're safe. Perhaps Ruby was looking out for you. Ruby, you say? What do you mean? After I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, the firefighters came and checked the cause of the fire alarm. However, the only source of fire in the house was a candle on Ruby's altar, which no one should have lit. This wasn't enough to trigger the fire alarm, indicating a possible malfunction, as there were no other signs of fire. Maybe Ruby is always watching over you? She was so happy to have such a lovely daughter-in-law. Loella told me with a smile. It might have been a coincidence, but even so, I felt a warmth thinking about Ruby's kind smile. After expressing my thanks to Loella again, I headed to a certain cake shop. This shop sells a chocolate cake that I've always loved. When I had promised to have tea time with Ruby, I wanted her to try the chocolate from this cake shop. After buying sweet buns, I went to the florist to buy flowers that matched Ruby's cheerful image with a fresh impression, and headed to visit her grave. Offering the flowers and chocolate at the grave, I expressed my gratitude to Ruby. Dear Ruby, thank you so much. Your help saved me. Though I've divorced Joseph, I will always love you, Mom. I wished I could have talked more with Ruby. I wanted to have that tea party. This chocolate was meant to be shared with you, Ruby, during our tea time. It's really delicious. Just then, the wind blew softly. Feeling as if Ruby had responded, a tear fell from my eye, but thinking that crying would worry Ruby, I lifted my face, smiled, and said, "I'll visit again, Ruby," and moved on. I decided to take the chocolate back with me later, as I couldn't leave it at the grave. On the way home, I felt incredibly refreshed. Despite everything, I vowed to live energetically from tomorrow on. Returning to single life, I threw myself into work more than ever before. Joseph and David, with their complex fractures, seem to still be in the hospital. The owner of the mansion is trying to collect the repair costs before they are discharged and sent to prison, and it seems they had to sell their car and belongings to pay back the money using their savings. Physically and mentally devastated, and with prison time awaiting them, they are experiencing a living hell. I hope they reflect deeply and pay for their crimes once they are discharged and sent to prison. Since then, I've been visiting Ruby's grave regularly, updating her on my life. Having had enough of love for a while, I've decided to enjoy being single and am studying hard to earn new qualifications. I plan to live every day without regrets. My husband called me disgusting for my severe morning sickness, looking down on me with cold eyes. "You're the one who threw up and made a mess, right? Hurry up and open the window to air it out. If the smell sticks, you're paying for it. Just because you find it hard to go shopping or cook doesn't mean morning sickness isn't an illness. Don't be so stupid." On top of that, as my morning sickness got worse, my husband left me at home and went on an overseas trip with mother-in-law, Audrina. That was the last straw for me, and I began to plot my revenge. A week later, my husband called, furious. I laughed it off. "Since you told me to clean the houses, I did just as you said. Got a problem with that?" I'm Kimberly, a 28-year-old office worker. My husband, Eamon, and I live in a detached house and both work while we've recently become pregnant. While I was happy, my morning sickness was so severe that I couldn't go to work on some days. Fortunately, many at my workplace were understanding. "Once you get through this, it'll get easier, so make sure to rest and take care of yourself." They gave me some time off when I was considering quitting. So, I spent my days at home, resting as much as possible, eating when I could, and doing household chores. The problem was my husband. He practically stopped doing any housework at all. "You're always at home, right? Even a pregnant woman can clean, so at least do that." While my husband used to do household chores when we were both working, he stopped doing anything since I took my leave. Even when I said I couldn't do it because of severe nausea, he wouldn't listen. Moreover, he compared me to other pregnant women he had seen, saying, "Just being lazy and slacking off in the name of morning sickness." Furthermore, he was extremely averse to me vomiting. The first time I vomited at home, I didn't make it to the toilet and ended up using the living room trash can. Seeing this, my husband, pinching his nose, hurried me to ventilate the room and kept yelling at me, even though my nausea hadn't subsided. Although I vomited into a plastic bag in the trash can, so the can itself wasn't dirty, he made me dispose of the bag and then threw the trash can away. "Hey, what's with that attitude? Why are you telling me to open a window when I'm vomiting? You could open it yourself." And I properly sealed the double bag before throwing it away. So why throw out the trash can in front of me as if to make a point? Disgusting, smelly, don't talk. Even if it's in a plastic bag, droplets might have gotten on the trash can. After that, no matter what I said, "Don't talk because it's smelly." He wouldn't even listen. I started to consider divorce. Maybe once my morning sickness settled down and I could go back to work, my husband would return to being the kind and helpful person he used to be. But could a husband who hurled such abuse at me while I was suffering return to how he was? Or was this his true nature? As I worried, my morning sickness only got worse, with nausea hitting me multiple times a day. I started carrying a plastic bag with me everywhere in the house to vomit without my husband seeing and dispose of it. However, one time, I didn't manage to dispose of it in time, and he saw me with the bag. Ew, don't touch anything, all right? You're paying for the sofa you just sat on since you're going to dispose of it because you dirtied it. He looked at me with utter disgust. When I impulsively brought up divorce, I noticed he was holding a pamphlet in his hand. He spread it out to show me. In about 2 weeks, I'm going on a trip overseas with Mom. We plan to stay for about a week. Don't slack off on cleaning just because I'm not here. Keep the house clean. What? What are you thinking? While looking at me coldly, my husband laughed in a low voice. I don't want to stay in a house you've made filthy. The morning sickness should settle down in about 3 weeks, right? By the time I'm back from the trip, it should be nearly over. So clean the house in the meantime. Fine. I'll give the house a thorough cleaning. The next 2 weeks were tough for me. He doubled down on doing nothing, even eating strongly scented meals or spraying harsh perfume around the room despite my pleas because it made me nauseous. Despite locking me in the bathroom, he'd bang on the door furiously and yell if he wanted to use it himself. This lifestyle continued. I immediately informed my parents that I had decided on divorce. Since my husband's attitude changed, I had been discussing it with my parents, who must have realized from my words that convincing me otherwise was no longer possible. They told me to come back home immediately. However, just divorcing and returning to my parents' home wasn't enough for me. I was determined to teach my husband, who lacked any awareness of being a father, and thought nothing of the individual differences in pregnancy and morning sickness, a lesson. 2 weeks later, I saw my husband off with a large carry-on bag. These 2 weeks were the peak of my morning sickness, and I had lost more than 2 kilos. If it continued like this, I would end up hospitalized due to severe pregnancy sickness. Seeing me visibly thinner, my husband still called me dirty, and, after repeatedly ordering me to clean the house, fled like he was escaping. I stayed at the entrance until he was out of sight, then took a deep breath and made a phone call. A week later, I was leisurely sitting in my parents' living room when calls from my husband kept coming in. Calls from my husband kept coming in one after another. After watching for a while, my parents started to panic, so I reluctantly answered. Don't mess with me. What the hell is this? Explain. I instinctively moved my smartphone away from my ear at the sound of my husband's loud voice the moment the call connected. Still, I sighed at the loud enough voice and listened to him. I can't get into the house. What's going on? Don't change the locks on me while I'm away. The real estate agent changed them. It's kind of gross to have the same keys as the previous tenant for the next one, right? So they changed the locks when selling the house. Huh? Real estate agent? Oh, didn't you see the sign? It's right there next to it. For sale. There was silence on the phone for a while before the angry voice came again. What are you doing on your own? Who gave you permission to sell it? Why are you selling it? You said the whole house smells. So I cleaned the entire house, including that. And why would I need anyone's permission to sell my house? Your house? That's not right. That house belongs to your grandfather. It's a crime to sell it without being the title holder. That house was given to me. I remodeled it, and it's in my name. You can't just sell it if you're not the title holder. Indeed, the house we lived in belonged to my grandfather. However, after my grandfather passed away, I, still single, remodeled it into its current form. And after getting married, my husband moved in to live together. My husband was momentarily speechless, knowing the title was in my name, but quickly changed his approach. That house is where I live too. You can't just kick out a resident like that. It's illegal to sell my stuff. Besides, it was our house since we lived there as a couple. So it's not just your house anymore. Unfortunately, that house was in my name before we got married. We never changed it to a joint title after marriage. Plus, I moved all the stuff out after, so your things are all safe. I did dispose of the sofa you said was smelly, though. My husband seemed panicked by the mention of moving out his belongings. He was asking where and when. It's at your grandmother's house. After all, you're away with Dad gone and no siblings. There was nowhere else to send it but your grandmother's when you went overseas with Audrina. Hearing his belongings were at his kind grandmother's house seemed to calm my husband for a moment, but his voice quickly filled with anger again. So, you're the kind of woman who sells the house and dumps the belongings while her husband is on a trip. I'm divorcing you. I'll sue for compensation in the divorce court because of this. It's a relief you're the one bringing up divorce. I don't want you to come to the house anymore, and I'll be heading there with my lawyer soon. So, goodbye. I wonder if my husband truly believed he could win if he took it to court. I calmed my panicking parents while contacting a lawyer. A week later, when I went to what my husband calls his in-laws' house, Audrina slapped me before I even entered the door. I had expected it and deliberately received the slap. Because of you, the house is a mess. A woman who can't even do housework because of a little morning sickness is useless. Pay the compensation in the divorce court, and let's divorce. As I was rubbing my stinging cheek, planning to retort to Audrina, she saw someone behind me and her face twisted. I thought you showed no remorse, but to strike immediately upon meeting is something else. Behind me was Carol, my husband's grandmother, looking furious. Hello. I'm really sorry for sending the belongings over so suddenly the other day. That's all right. If it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have noticed at all. I had come to the in-laws' house, which was now the home of my husband's grandmother, who had kindly accepted his belongings. When I sent my husband's belongings, I included a letter of apology, detailing everything about our situation. As a result, the grandmother was furious with her grandson's husband for hurling terrible words at his wife suffering from morning sickness and leaving her to fend for herself. She was equally furious at Audrina for going on an overseas trip with him without admonishing such behavior. The grandmother, now 80 years old, is a gentle figure to her grandson, but a disagreeable mother-in-law to Audrina. Since Audrina married into the family, her relationship with the grandmother, due to their clashing personalities, has always been like cats and dogs. Sure enough, Audrina, upon suddenly facing the grandmother, twisted her face in obvious annoyance, which only fueled the grandmother's anger further. After briefly addressing the shouting match between the two, I entered the house. There, my husband stood, dumbfounded next to the grandmother and Audrina. It might have been shocking for my husband to see his kind grandmother and mother arguing so fiercely. However, wanting to discuss matters with my husband without Audrina's interference, I had informed the grandmother of my visit in advance, and we started the divorce negotiation with my lawyer before Audrina could return. The process didn't take much time and ended smoothly. The compensation amount my husband had prepared for the divorce court and its basis were systematically dismantled by my lawyer, leaving him speechless. After a thorough division of assets and agreeing not to approach me except when visiting our child after its birth, my husband readily agreed, and our marriage ended abruptly. As I was leaving the house, the grandmother and Audrina were still standing next to each other. I addressed them briefly before departing, but they seemed too heated in their argument to pay me any mind. Subsequently, I began receiving a barrage of complaint-like emails from my ex-husband. Apparently, he became annoyed with the grandmother coming to the in-laws' house and meddling. Imagining my former husband and Audrina, who had shouted at me so boldly, becoming meek in front of a petite grandmother, finally brought me to laughter. However, the nature of my ex-husband's emails soon shifted towards seeking reconciliation. Every day they're shouting. They both ask me what I think when they're fighting, dragging me into it. And it's annoying. It's a lifetime request. Please, let me stay at your place. I'll do household chores or anything. I won't do anything terrible again, and I'll never say it. I want to meet our coming child, too. I love you. I want to remarry you. I responded mechanically. I will not reconcile. As for the child, you can meet if you pay child support, and left it at that. Eventually, the messages from my ex-husband ceased. Apparently, unable to bear the living conditions, he left Audrina and went somewhere. Not providing any support, Audrina, not yet of pensionable age, is scraping by on her savings. Audrina herself contacted me with this news. No one's helping me. Please, I want to stay at your place. I only went on the trip with my son because he invited me. I had no idea you were suffering so much from morning sickness, she claimed, lining up convenient excuses over the phone. But when I threatened to report her to the police, the calls stopped. Apparently, the grandmother also refused to help, and Audrina, limited by her savings, began working part-time. Thus, she no longer had the energy to call or email me. However, the altercation between the grandmother and Audrina that day is well known throughout the neighborhood, and they saw me deliberately receiving Audrina's slap. Consequently, the neighbors have distanced themselves from Audrina, leaving her to live uncomfortably in her home. Seemingly unable to afford renting a new apartment, she spends her days diminishing in stature. Yet, living alone in a rent-free house should be manageable on a part-time income. My morning sickness has finally subsided, and I no longer vomit. The doctor, learning of my divorce and the circumstances around it, scolded me for accumulating too much stress, which wouldn't help in healing. Though I had been consulting with my family, the stress from living with an uncooperative ex-husband for a while and dealing with real estate agents online to sell the house had been too much on my body, and I reflected on this. Moving forward, I plan to avoid stress and return to work. Anyway, I'll be taking maternity leave before giving birth, planning to live at my parents' house. Now, imagining the appearance of my unborn child brings me immense joy. As the days go by, my anticipation grows, and I can hardly wait to see what kind of child will be born. No matter what, I intend to raise my child with love.
Welcome. Oh, wait a minute. I follow the gaze of my astonished husband, Zachary, and see a girl standing there, drenched and shivering, dressed thinly and wearing sandals despite the cold. Can you give me something to eat with this? Approaching me, the girl extends her trembling hand, holding a $1. Zachary and I exchange looks. For now, we get the girl changed into dry clothes and feed her a hearty soup full of ingredients. Watching her blow on the soup and eat with gusto, we feel relieved. The girl's name is Cindy, living with her mom, Ellen. Apparently, her mom is busy with work, working non-stop. Concerned about Cindy, we tell her she's welcome at our place anytime. Since then, Cindy starts visiting us once a week, always after 2 p.m. on Sundays. One day, Cindy rushes in with her backpack on, and following her lead, Zachary and I arrive at her house to find. Mom, I brought them. We peek cautiously into the room Cindy entered. This is terrible. The entrance is cluttered with large trash bags, leaving no place to step. Zachary and I involuntarily exchange glances, frowning. After a while, a woman leaning against the wall emerges from inside. She must be Cindy's mom, Ellen. Are you Cindy's mom? Yes. What? Seeing her, My name is Daisy. Together with my husband, Zachary, we run a restaurant. This place, named Flower, was originally started by Zachary's parents, but we took over 10 years ago. Thankfully, the nostalgic taste that has been cherished for years keeps our regular customers coming back daily. Daisy, hey! Oh, sorry. I'll bring it right now. I notice Zachary's voice and give him a smile. Take your time. Encouraged by Zachary's gentle gaze and voice, I muster my strength. I need to keep it together. I can't get scolded by Teddy. Taking a deep breath, I carry the steaming beef stew to the waiting customers with a smile. Neither Zachary nor I originally intended to take over the restaurant. Zachary was working a regular office job, and I was a dietitian at a hospital. Our decision to take over the restaurant was largely influenced by our daughter. Our PIL were actually ready to close the restaurant at 65, but at the insistence of our customers wanting us to keep it open and understanding our feelings, they decided to hand over the restaurant to us. Our feelings, they're all for our daughter, Teddy. She was born when I was 28. Premature, weighing only about 4 pounds. We hope she grows up energetic and brightens up the surroundings like a flower. And to be loved by everyone, just like our restaurant. Zachary wished, looking at our daughter fighting for her life in the incubator. Teddy, your hospital stay got extended again. Teddy grew slowly but surely, though her body was weak, and she had several hospital admissions and discharges. Each time, Zachary and I rode the roller coaster of emotions. Perhaps knowing how we felt, Teddy always acted cheerfully. Let's have a party at Grandpa's restaurant when I'm discharged. Teddy loved the beef stew made by Grandpa and the cheesecake made by Grandma. She loved their restaurant and always wanted to have parties there. Today is Grandma's birthday. We even celebrated our PIL's birthdays with our customers involved. Teddy, always kind and uplifting to everyone, was supposed to grow into an even more wonderful woman right before our eyes. The situation took a sudden turn in the winter of Teddy's 3rd grade year. Since starting 3rd grade, Teddy's health had improved significantly, and she was able to attend school regularly. She participated in her first sports day and even had friends come over to play after school. Finally leading a normal life, Zachary and I were relieved, but one day, we got a call from the school saying Teddy had collapsed. Rushing to the hospital, we found Teddy asleep in the ICU, connected to numerous tubes. She was fine just this morning. Why? Doctor, Teddy will be okay, right? Zachary and I were so panicked we could hardly stand without the hospital staff support. Teddy's condition had worsened due to her congenital kidney problems, and the doctors informed us it was critical. I'm sorry for worrying you. I'll be okay soon. I need to get discharged quickly so we can have that discharge party. Despite clearly being unwell, Teddy tried to cheer us up. However, the disease gradually took over her body, and 2 weeks after being admitted, Teddy passed away. Until the very end, Teddy looked forward to having a party at Grandpa's restaurant. That's why we strongly opposed when our PIL considered closing the restaurant. We wanted to protect this restaurant filled with memories of Teddy. Then, with warm smiles, they nodded in agreement to our wishes. Over the next 7 years, my FIL and MIL painstakingly passed down the restaurant's recipes to us. Thanks to them, Flower continues to be a beloved place for everyone. Could I have the beef stew, please? Oh, Daisy, could you put this up in the restaurant? One day, while taking an order, the local florist gave me a small bouquet. Today marks the anniversary of Teddy's passing. Among our regulars, there are still those who remember Teddy, showing their gentle consideration, like the florist did. It's heartwarming to know people remember Teddy. Yet, I can't shake off the feeling of regret. If only I had given birth to a stronger child. Alone in the closed shop, I gaze at the flowers from the florist, tears welling up. In the quiet of the shop, without customers, I sometimes think of Teddy and find myself crying. It's nobody's fault. Even after 23 years, it makes me so happy that people besides us remember Teddy. It must be thanks to this shop. Zachary comforts me with a gentle rub on my back whenever I feel down. 23 years, huh? Looking around the shop, it's well maintained but shows its age, being 50 years old. We're 59 now. I wonder how long we can keep this place that Teddy loved so much. Daisy, what's wrong? Nothing, it's nothing. Thank you. Feeling a vague sense of unease about how quickly time passes, I didn't want to worry Zachary anymore, so I left it unsaid. On a day with heavy rain, with few customers and an unusual quiet inside, the sound of rain outside was more pronounced. It's quiet today, Daisy. You can take a break in the back if you want. Zachary kindly suggests as I start cleaning around out of boredom. Thank you. But I feel like I need to keep busy. Just then, the door opened. I'm sorry. Welcome. Oh, wait a minute. I follow Zachary's astonished gaze to see a girl standing there, drenched and shivering, dressed thinly and wearing sandals despite the cold. Just a moment. I'll go get a towel. I rush to the back room to grab a bath towel. You must be cold. It's okay now. Could you give me something to eat with this? The girl extends her trembling hand to me, holding a single dollar bill. Zachary and I exchange looks. Daisy, do we have any clothes that might fit her? There's Teddy's pajamas upstairs. Come on, we can't have you catching a cold. Let's get you changed for now. I wrap the drenched girl in the bath towel and take her up to the second floor. The second floor, which is in use now, was where our PIL lived until 3 years ago. Teddy loved her grandparents so much that she left her pajamas with them so she could always stay over, and they've kept them in pristine condition. Oh, it fits perfectly. The pattern is a bit outdated, but please forgive that. Worried that the girl might dislike the old-fashioned pattern of the 23-year-old pajamas. I was relieved when she seemed happy to wear them and quietly said, "Thank you." Descending to the first floor, Zachary's eyes widen at the sight of the girl in Teddy's pajamas. You look great. Yeah, really suits you. Wait a moment, I'll make something to warm you up. Zachary begins to happily chop onions, perhaps seeing a glimpse of Teddy in the girl. Be careful, it's hot. After a while, Zachary brings over a soup brimming with ingredients. Wow, looks delicious. The girl's face brightens. Watching her blow on the soup and eagerly eat, we can't help but smile. I'm full. Thank you for the meal. After finishing, the girl politely expresses her gratitude. Hey, can I ask your name? Cindy. Cindy Williams. Cindy. Zachary and I exchange glances at the similarity in resonance to Teddy's name. Upon further inquiry, we learn Cindy is 8 years old, the same age Teddy was when she passed. That's why Teddy's pajamas fit her perfectly. Teddy was this small, huh? Remembering Teddy, I find myself tearing up. At the same time, I wondered why such a small child was out alone in the heavy rain. Can I ask about your home, Cindy? Tentatively, Cindy nods and begins to share. She lives with her mom, Ellen, who seems to be always busy with work. What kind of work does your mom do? Cleaning and diner. It appears her mom doesn't have a stable job. Does she usually cook for you? She usually leaves soup or bread for me. But there wasn't anything today. I think Mom was just too busy. So I thought I'd buy something with $1, but then the rain. Unable to reach the grocery store, Cindy found our shop and felt drawn to enter. It was clear from her manner of speaking that Cindy loves her mom dearly. And though we've never met her mom, it's evident from Cindy's stories that she's doing her best to raise her daughter. As a single mother, this family likely has no one else to rely on. What should we do? Zachary and I fall silent for a moment. Sensing our concern, Cindy stands up. Thank you so much for today. The soup was delicious and really cheered me up. I know $1 isn't enough, but I'm sorry. With that, she offers the $1. It's okay, you don't need to pay. We refuse the money, but Cindy insists on paying something. Then, I'll accept the $1. Thank you. Would you like to come over for a meal again? You don't need to pay, of course. Really? It's not right to eat at a shop without paying. Cindy stammers and looks down. Cindy, despite her circumstances, doesn't wallow in self-pity and tries to adhere to manners. Seeing Cindy, so mature for her 8 years, only makes me worry more. Our child, you see, passed away at the age of 8. Her name was Teddy, similar to yours, Cindy. Hearing my story, Cindy looks up. Seeing you reminds us of Teddy, and it makes us happy. That's why we're hoping you'll come visit us again. We'd love to talk more with you, Cindy. When our eyes meet and I smile at her, Cindy finally returns a soft smile. As the rain lightened, we walked Cindy to her house. She kept turning back and waving until she entered her room. Hello. Since then, Cindy started visiting us once a week, after 2 p.m. on Sundays. What's this dish called? Casserole. I love casserole. It's like my cheeks are falling off. Cindy was overjoyed the first time she tried casserole. As a dietitian, I made it a point to use my knowledge to provide Cindy with as balanced a diet as possible. Perhaps because of this, Cindy gradually began to look healthier. Uncle Zachary, Aunt Daisy, thank you. After eating, she would always leave some coins behind. It's okay. We're just using up spare ingredients. Despite our insistence that she didn't need to pay, Cindy left coins on the table every time. She's such a well-mannered child. Sometimes, her excitement over the cheesecake dessert made us realize she's still very much an 8-year-old girl. Gradually, Cindy started to share more about school and other things with us. I tried to do a backward roll in PE, but I couldn't do it at all. Do you want to practice in the park later? Yeah. Cindy's eyes sparkled. That reminded me. Teddy also struggled with backward rolls. We practiced during break times at the park. But then one day, she just got it. I think a friend taught her. Old memories resurface. Talking with Cindy, we increasingly see Teddy's reflection in her. So, we wanted her to find happiness by any means. Still, it seems her mom continues to work non-stop. We don't really know what her job is. But it feels wrong to pry too much into their personal affairs, doesn't it? We could only watch over Cindy on her Sunday visits, feeling restless. One day, close to the end of lunchtime on a weekday, Cindy rushed into the shop looking very distressed. Oh, Cindy, what's wrong? Coming from school? Breathing heavily with her backpack still on, Cindy shakes her head. Mom is. Take it easy, Cindy. Zachary says, handing her a glass of water. I help Cindy take some deep breaths to calm down, then slowly get her to drink the water. What's wrong with Mom? She can't stop coughing. It's really bad, and she asked for someone to call for help. I gently embrace Cindy as she looks like she's about to cry. Got it. It's okay. Cindy, shall we go to your house together? Yes. I signal Zachary with my eyes, and he quickly looks at the clock before starting to take off his apron. I'll come too. The customers have just left, and lunchtime is almost over anyway. Saying that, he puts a closed sign on the door. This way. Following Cindy, we hurry to her house. They live in an old 2-story apartment building. Without hesitation, Cindy opens the door to apartment 101. Mom, I've brought them. We cautiously peek into the room Cindy entered. This is terrible. The entrance is cluttered with large trash bags, leaving no place to step. Zachary and I exchange worried glances, frowning. Soon, a woman leaning against the wall comes out. Likely Cindy's mom, Ellen. Sorry, cough, cough. Attempting to pat the coughing woman's back, I realize her body is very hot. And even to a layperson, it's clear she's seriously ill. Are you Cindy's mom? Yes, sorry, I let a cold get out of hand, cough, cough. Ellen, this is serious. We're calling an ambulance. Zachary says, immediately calling for emergency services. Where's your insurance card? On the top shelf of the storage. Pushing aside trash bags with my foot, I enter the room, which is in a sorry state. The sink is full of used dishes, there's a mountain of laundry beside the bed, and finished meals and trash cover the table. Cindy is diligently gathering trash into a bag. Cindy, your mom is going to the hospital now. Following the instructions, I find the insurance card on the top shelf of the storage. The ambulance arrives quickly, and the paramedics carry Ellen out of the house. I'll go with her. That's good. Stay with Cindy. We'll manage the shop. I decide to go to the hospital with Cindy in the ambulance. After examinations, it turns out Ellen had let a cold escalate into near pneumonia and needed to be hospitalized for about a week. Thanks to the medication, Ellen's cough settles and she breathes easier. Probably sleeping for the first time in a while. Cindy, the doctors will take care of Mom, so it's going to be okay. Do you want to stay at our house until Mom gets better? Cindy looks worriedly at her mom, and I speak up. Really, is that okay? Of course. It will probably make your mom rest easier knowing you're safe. She'll get better quickly. Thank you. Cindy grips my hand tightly, likely feeling relieved. Cindy, it's okay to say I need help like you did today. Then, people around you will reach out. You mustn't keep it all inside. Okay. Cindy grips my hand again, this time with more strength. The next day was our day off, so Zachary and I, along with Cindy, decide to visit Ellen in the hospital. Ellen had just woken up. Seeing her color much improved, Cindy rushes to her. Cindy, I'm so sorry for troubling you. Ellen, embracing Cindy gently, immediately expresses her gratitude to us. Really, thank you so much. Taking care of Cindy when you're not even family. Ellen, you don't have to be family to rely on someone. Hearing my words, Ellen looks up, tears streaming down her face. Mom, Aunt Daisy's house has a parrot, and it said I love you. Cindy excitedly shares stories about our parrot, making Ellen smile gently. Ellen, may I ask about your situation? Yes. I'm a single mother. Ellen began to share her story. She's 31. She had Cindy at 23, but never married the man who would have been Cindy's dad. We had just started a restaurant with him and a friend. He said we'd marry once the business took off. She thought it was considerate of him to try to avoid saddling a child with debt. However, a year later, as the restaurant began to attract customers and debts were being paid as planned, he disappeared, taking a large amount of the restaurant's earnings with him. My friend and I were dumbfounded. His phone was disconnected. He had said he grew up in foster care, so I knew nothing about any relatives. Then the friend said, I can't do this anymore, and left, forcing Ellen to manage the restaurant alone. I had to pay off the debts while taking care of Cindy, but I couldn't keep the restaurant going by myself and eventually had to close it down. From then on, Ellen had no choice but to work desperately to repay the debts. But she was only a high school graduate and had a small child. There were no regular employee positions available for her. I've done day labor jobs. I thought I had to work whenever I had the time. Now, I'm working as a temp doing cleaning jobs and part-time at a grocery store in the evenings. She spends a little time with Cindy in the evening before heading back to work. And she returns home early in the morning, often letting Cindy sleep in a corner of her workplace. Cindy told me about the kindness you've shown us. Thank you so much. I've been meaning to thank you, but I haven't had the courage to show my face. Eh? I was afraid you'd scold me, saying, "What are you doing not even taking proper care of your child?" And you'd be right. I haven't been able to properly care for Cindy, and now I've ended up collapsing. I'm a failure as a parent. Ellen looks down, while Cindy is focused on her homework beside her. I notice the name Cindy Williams written there and something clicks. Ellen, you're 31, right? Yes. Do you remember a kid named Teddy Smith? In 3rd grade, she had twin braids. Ellen thinks for a moment, then her face lights up with recognition. I remember Teddy. Wait, are you Teddy's parents? I'm delighted and grasp Ellen's hand in affirmation. I was feeling nostalgic because Cindy and Teddy's names sounded similar, but to think you were the Ellen Williams, Teddy's friend. Teddy had mentioned Ellen's name several times. Ellen, who was athletic, would chase after groups of mischievous boys. Teddy said she managed to do the backward roll because Ellen helped her practice during lunch breaks. Teddy often talked admiringly about Ellen, who was full of energy and reliable. When I mention this, Ellen shakes her head. No, it was me who admired Teddy. She was honest and could make her way into anyone's heart. Eh? I was always scolded by the teachers for not acting like a girl. Some kids would stop playing with me if I got scolded. I was the one who looked up to Teddy. Ellen bit her lip, clearly pained by the memories. But Teddy would say, I love Ellen the most because she's strong and kind. I want to be like her. Her words saved me. Teddy said that. We had only heard about Ellen as if she were a hero from Teddy's perspective. To think there were such exchanges between them. Teddy was learning a lot from her friends, experiencing various emotions and living her days to the fullest. Discovering a new aspect of Teddy made us happy. I guess Teddy in heaven would be disappointed in me now. I need to do better. At this point, Zachary, who had been silently listening, sensitively responded to Ellen's words. Yeah, Teddy would be disappointed if things stayed like this. Hey, Zachary. I couldn't understand why he would say such a thing to Ellen, who was sick and weak, and I glared at him. Ignoring my glare, Zachary looked straight at Ellen. If you keep trying to handle everything alone, I think Teddy would be disappointed. You're doing great, Ellen. Taking on the debt alone and working hard for Cindy. Hearing Zachary's words, Ellen started to cry, and he handed her a tissue. He continued, But remember, it's okay to ask for help when you're in trouble. Someone will surely help you. Maybe that's what you admired about Teddy? Ellen, sobbing, nodded repeatedly. Teddy, who had been frail since childhood and relied on others' help, knew her limits well and was adept at seeking help. It made sense why Ellen, who had always done everything by herself, admired Teddy. Mom, Aunt Daisy told me it's okay to say I need help. You shouldn't keep everything to yourself. Cindy gently stroked the crying Ellen's head. That's right. You shouldn't keep it all to yourself. Ellen gently stroked Cindy's head in return, and then looked at us. I realize I can't go on living like this. But becoming a full-time employee seems impossible for me. Can you help me? Ellen's earnest gaze made me earnestly want to help this family. Ellen, you used to run a restaurant, right? Are you interested in cooking? Yes. I love seeing people happy and full. Zachary looked at me and nodded. We run a restaurant. How about working and living with us? Eh? Ellen was too shocked by the sudden proposal to respond. What does living in mean? Cindy, remember when you first came to our place and changed upstairs? No one lives there right now, so we thought you and your mom could live there. And your mom could work at our restaurant. Eh? So I can see Mom anytime she's working? Cindy jumped for joy. Is that okay? It's a bit old, but we've been cleaning it regularly, so I think it's livable. The salary isn't very high, but there's no rent, and with meals provided for lunch and dinner, you should be able to live comfortably. Zachary smiled kindly at Ellen. Thank you so much. Really, thank you. Ellen repeated her thanks many times. You managed to ask for help. I'm sure Teddy is happy for you up in heaven. Yes. Ellen smiled through her tears. A week later, Ellen was discharged from the hospital and moved into the apartment above the shop. Take your time getting used to the job. We don't do overtime here. Family time comes first, and if you have any trouble, just let us know. That's our employment policy. Yes. I look forward to working with you. Ellen's voice filled the shop with brightness. Ellen, having experience running a food business, was skilled in cooking and quick to learn. She even knew accounting, quickly becoming an invaluable member of our team. It's great, Zachary. We've found a worthy successor. Our regular customers celebrated the arrival of a new successor. I'd be happy if that happens, but it's Ellen's decision to make. If you're okay with me, I'll do my best. I want to give back to Zachary and Daisy and this restaurant. Zachary and I couldn't help but smile at her determined response. I'm home. Welcome back, Cindy. Greeting Cindy as she returns from school has become a daily joy for Ellen and us. Cindy confided that being welcomed home makes her incredibly happy. The time spent with family has reminded us of the joy and smiles it brings. With Ellen and Cindy around, the shop has become even livelier. Cindy, could you bring some water? Sure. Cindy helps out. And I've found myself no longer haunted by the loneliness of losing Teddy. I've come to truly love this place filled with memories of Teddy. Ah, it's a beautiful day. On a warm, sunny day, our house phone rang. It was Cindy. Aunt Daisy, can you come to the shop at 11 a.m.? Let's practice the backward roll in the park. Of course. See you later. Cindy has become very dear to us. Like a real granddaughter. Zachary had errands in the morning and was out, so I headed to the shop alone. Arriving, I saw a sign on the door, "Party today." Cindy's handwriting. I quietly opened the door. Happy birthday, Aunt Daisy! Cindy's voice was followed by a round of applause. Inside, Zachary, Ellen, and Cindy stood smiling. The shop was decorated with balloons and colored paper, and the tables were laden with delicious food. I had never had a surprise birthday party and was moved to tears. Aunt Daisy, thank you for always being kind to me and Mom. We hope to be with you forever. Cindy read from a letter and handed me a bouquet of flowers. They had gone early in the morning with Ellen to pick them. Small flowers come together, brightening and energizing the surroundings with their vivid colors. Indeed, a single flower alone cannot unleash its full potential. I believe the same is true for people. Cindy says we helped her, but Ellen and Cindy have saved us just as much. Thank you, Cindy, for warming up to me. Thank you, Cindy and Ellen, for coming into our lives. Thank you, Zachary, for always being there. And thank you, Teddy, for bringing Ellen and her daughter into our lives. I expressed my gratitude to each of them. Let's eat while it's warm. Cheers! Zachary said, a bit shyly. Surrounded by their smiles, I felt an immense happiness. A new cherished memory was added to our flower. Surely I've been transferring $1,000, right? Why has it dropped to just $50? I couldn't help but raise my voice, yet Mom, in front of me, seemed as calm as ever. A year ago, after Dad passed away from an illness, and both Robert and I had moved out, Mom was living alone. Concerned about her future, we decided to provide Mom with $1,000 in financial support each month. However, Mom's words were, "Thank you for the $50 in financial support you always send." Wait, Mom. I'm sure I've been transferring $1,000 every month. We've talked about this before, haven't we? Yes, dear. But I thought $1,000 might be too much for you, so I kept quiet. Even $50 is enough to show your care, and it makes me happy. Mom said kindly. Her words brought tears to my eyes, but at the same time, I was swirled with disbelief over the missing $950. I'm glad to hear you say that, Mom. But could you show me the transaction history of your account, just to check? Upon my request, Mom took out the bank account statement from the cupboard and showed it to me. Indeed, the bank account had only been credited with $50 each month. This isn't right. There must be some mistake. How about we change your bank account, just in case? I suggested. Mom replied, Indeed, if Nancy really has been transferring $1,000, then something is wrong. I'll check with the bank. After Mom consulted the bank, It turned out there was no error in the transfers. Despite my suspicions, Mom had switched the financial support to a new bank account she opened at a different bank. From next month, I'll transfer the financial support to this new bank account. Thank you. I feel bad, though. Really, you don't have to strain yourself. Every time Mom showed concern for me, I felt an even stronger desire to support her. After changing the bank account, the strange discrepancy in amounts ceased, and I was able to support Mom as initially planned. Months later, upon returning from work, I found Robert, with a furious expression, waiting for me at the entrance of my apartment building. As siblings, Robert now lives away from our childhood home. As I approached him, Robert raised his eyebrows and suddenly shouted angrily. Wondering why he was mad, he kicked the wall and yelled, "Enough with the jokes! You've been skipping out on the financial support for Mom, haven't you?" My name is Nancy. I've been working as a civil servant for 10 years now, at the age of 33. Since my student days, my goal has been to lead a stable life, not only for myself but also to make my parents proud. Dad worked in legal affairs for a prestigious company, handling vast knowledge and making heavy decisions, which I've admired since I was young. Mom was a housewife, calm and kind. She never got unfairly angry and always taught us important lessons, making her the ideal mom. Proud to be their child, I've always planned to make them proud as an adult. After getting a job, true to my resolve, I've been treating my parents to meals on payday and taking them on trips, repaying them for their kindness in my own way. I have an older brother who is 3 years older than me. His name is Robert. He's my complete opposite, lacking any semblance of stability, carefree and irresponsible since our childhood. Contrary to me, who had good grades and never missed nor was late for class, Robert's attitude in class was poor, always drawing attention, and his grades were mediocre at best. Due to his habit of skipping school, his attendance was unreliable. When I was in middle school, I once lost my patience with Robert's attitude and confronted him. "Do you not realize that our comfortable life is thanks to Dad earning and Mom taking care of the house? You're in high school, and Dad's paying your tuition. The meals and clothes are all thanks to Mom's hard work the day before. Don't you see you're wasting their effort? Your room is a mess, you skip school. Don't you feel sorry for Dad and Mom?" Lying on his dirty bed, Robert casually replied, "My life is my own. Why do I have to try hard for our parents? Is that all you want, Nancy? Being serious just to get praised by Dad and Mom, and you're happy with that?" Seeing his attitude, I felt my blood boil. It wasn't about getting praised. I just wanted to be a daughter they wouldn't be ashamed of. Yet, Robert didn't try to understand my feelings at all. "I don't care anymore. If Robert makes Dad and Mom sad, I'll make them happy." Back then, that was as far as our arguments would go. Despite going to college thanks to our parents, Robert continued to live irresponsibly, not finding a proper job. He moved out and worked part-time jobs, which never lasted long, and of course, his income didn't improve. Eventually, he got into a shotgun marriage with someone he met at one of his jobs, only to divorce within 2 years, truly hopeless. I was frustrated and angry at Robert, feeling sorry for our parents who tried to help him in every way. And I continued to support our parents steadily, but then, a year ago, Dad passed away. With Robert and I already independent, our childhood home was left to Mom alone. Although Mom receives old age pension and survivor benefits, and had savings, there were still concerns. So, I decided to financially support Mom. There were maintenance costs for the house, and I wanted her to have money to use freely. I could have proceeded with this alone, but I decided to inform Robert as well. I doubted he had given any thought to Mom's living situation. I hoped he might reconsider his stance upon hearing my plan. On the way back from Dad's funeral, Robert's reaction to my plan to support Mom was better than expected. "That's a good idea. It must be lonely for her alone. At least we can make sure she doesn't struggle financially." I was surprised by Robert's words. I never expected such a response from someone who had never shown much filial piety. "You think so too, Robert? Thank you for agreeing." And my response was genuine. Though we had been distant siblings, this might be a chance to mend our relationship. "Of course. It'd be hard for you to send $1,000 alone. How about we split it, $500 each?" I was taken aback. "Really, Robert? You're going to contribute? Aren't you still earning an hourly wage? Are you sure?" "I'm working a lot, so it's fine. If I cut back on going out, I can definitely contribute $500. I'm your brother after all, so you can rely on me a bit, right?" I felt my eyes well up. I had never liked Robert much, despising the irresponsible life he led despite our parents' upbringing. I never thought of relying on Robert. Perhaps Dad's passing had changed his outlook. Or maybe Robert had grown up without my realization. Struggling to hold back tears, I awkwardly replied, "Don't suddenly start acting all high and mighty just because you're my brother. It throws me off. But thank you. Let's do our best together from now on." And so, we agreed to support Mom together. However, just 3 months later, "It looks like I can't manage the $500 every month after all." That was the message I received from Robert, who had promised to support Mom financially with me. The Robert the First had briefly considered reliable turned out to be unreliable after all. Disappointed as I was, considering Robert's financial situation, it seemed unavoidable and I had to accept it. "What happened to managing if you just saved a bit?" I did save. But the store I was working at closed down, and now I'm out of a job. Just getting by on what I have until I find something new. I'm really sorry." Faced with that, there was nothing I could say. "Okay, I'll take care of the entire $1,000 for Mom's financial support then. You focus on finding a job. Let's not worry Mom, okay?" I ended the call with that. Given Robert's situation, it was clear he couldn't afford to continue the support if he was out of work. Though I was a bit exasperated by my unreliable brother, I hoped he might offer to help again once his situation improved. I decided to transfer $1,000 to Mom's bank account every month on my own. Months have passed since I started to support Mom by myself. I called Mom one holiday to catch up. At first, we chatted about trivial things like recent meals, places we'd visited, and my job. But then, Mom said something that caught my attention. "By the way, Nancy, thank you for the financial support you send to my bank account every month." Hearing Mom's words of thanks warmed my heart. While $1,000 isn't a small amount, just hearing Mom's calm voice made any financial squeeze seem trivial. "Don't mention it, Mom. I just want you to live comfortably. Treat yourself to something nice once in a while, okay?" Then Mom, in her ever-kind voice, replied, "That's very kind of you. The $50 you send every month really helps." "Wait, what?" I exclaimed, shocked, over the phone. "Wait, Mom. I've definitely been transferring $1,000 every month. We've talked about this before, right?" My heart raced. $1,000 dropping to just $50? That can't be. Impossible. I clearly remember telling Mom about the financial support plan with Robert. She hesitated many times, but I insisted. Yes, dear. But I thought the $1,000 might be too much for you, so I stayed quiet. Even $50 is enough to feel your kindness, and I'm happy with that. Mom reassured me with those words. While her warmth touched my heart, I also felt a swirl of dissatisfaction about where the rest of the $950 was going. I'm glad you feel that way, Mom, but I've been transferring $1,000. It's strange for money to just disappear like that. As I spoke, trembling with unease, Mom's tone turned serious, perhaps realizing the strangeness of the situation. Is that so? If you've really been sending $1,000 every month, then something's wrong. This might be serious. Mom, just to be safe, can you show me the transaction history of your account? I'll come over tomorrow. Today was Saturday, and tomorrow being Sunday meant I was off work. The family home was close by, allowing me to visit with ease. So, the next day, I headed to the family home where Mom was waiting. Despite being on her own now, the family home was well kept, and Mom looked healthy after not seeing her for a while, which reassured me. Mom and I decided to check the account transaction history, as promised, after some casual conversation. Mom brought out the transaction history from the cupboard to show me. Indeed, the amount deposited into that bank account was only $50 each month. I was speechless. $950 was disappearing every month. Even though I had more leeway than Robert, it was still the money I earned from working hard every month, not a small amount by any means. I felt the blood drain from my face, and my hands holding the transaction history trembled. This doesn't make sense. For good measure, I checked the transaction history number. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The account number listed was completely different from the one I had been transferring money to every month. Mom, this bank account number is different from the one I've been transferring to. Why? Tears welled up as I looked up at Mom, who stared back at me, shocked. Really? What's going on? There was no hint of deceit or feigned ignorance in Mom's expression. The thought that I might have been unknowingly sending $1,000 each month to a stranger's bank account sent chills down my spine. After discussing it, Mom and I agreed to open a new bank account. It's unsettling, so let's make a new bank account. If we use this account exclusively for financial support and keep it separate from everything else, there should be no mistakes. The next day, Mom promptly opened a new bank account at a different bank and gave me the number a few weeks later. Starting next month, I'll transfer the financial support to this new bank account. Thank you. I feel bad, though. Really, you don't have to go to all this trouble. Every time Mom expressed concern, I felt even more determined to support her. No, it's okay. Hey, why don't we go out and eat something delicious together sometime? A nice restaurant opened up near me. Even such trivial conversations brought me joy. I sincerely wished for Mom's health and peace. Just as my payday arrived, I transferred $1,000 to Mom's new bank account. The next day, after emailing Mom, I received a message confirming the deposit of $1,000 and her words of thanks. I'm glad. Now the money will definitely reach Mom. Though losing money over several months was regrettable, knowing the funds would now reliably reach Mom provided some relief. And so, the following month, I sent the financial support to that bank account again. As the process of sending financial support smoothly continued. One day, as I was about to return home from work, someone was waiting at the entrance of my apartment. I use my car for commuting, and as I looked up from the window, I saw a figure standing in front of my room. It was Robert, whom I hadn't contacted since then, waiting with an angry expression. I hadn't heard from Robert since he lost his job and was unable to contribute to the financial support. Since I could support Mom on my own, I never prompted Robert to contribute again. Though I once felt he was reliable, our relationship had ultimately become distant. Why would Robert suddenly show up at my place? I parked my car and hurried to the front of the apartment. Robert, who had been waiting with anger, now looked red-faced. Upon seeing me, he furrowed his brows and suddenly raised his voice aggressively.
"Hey, Nancy! Don't lie to Mom!"
Startled by his threatening manner, I involuntarily stepped back.
"What's wrong all of a sudden? Why are you angry after showing up out of nowhere?"
Completely bewildered, I could only ask, puzzled by the sudden confrontation. I had plans for the rest of the day. I don't have time to be talking to Robert like this. Sighing, I looked up at Robert who, for some reason, was getting infuriated in front of me. Then Robert, kicking the wall violently, raised his voice.
"Don't pretend you don't know. It's about you slacking off on the financial support for Mom. What are you talking about?"
Shocked by his absurd claim, I was speechless. Of course, I've been transferring money to Mom's new bank account, and even if there were circumstances that prevented me from sending money, Robert, who hasn't been in touch for a long time, has no reason to be this angry at me. Besides, I didn't even want to speak to Robert anymore.
"I've been transferring the financial support. The deposit amount to Mom was weird, so we created a new bank account together and I've been sending it there."
As I said this calmly, Robert distorted his face and blocked my way into the house as if to stop me.
"What's that about changing the bank account? Why didn't you report it to me?" "Why should I, when you said you couldn't provide financial support anyway? You said you couldn't afford it until you found a new job. I don't understand why you're angry, but you have no right to say anything."
I'm in a hurry and want to get into the house quickly. Yet, Robert won't move out of the way and keeps snapping at me.
"Don't say that. I found a new job. I'm getting the hang of it and can start contributing to the financial support next month. So, tell me the new bank account."
Frustration grows over not being able to enter the house and Robert's irresponsible behavior. After gritting my teeth, I looked up at Robert.
"I can't tell you. I definitely won't tell you. What's with getting mad all of a sudden? Why?"
How long does he plan to play dumb? I couldn't hold back any longer and confronted Robert with the truth.
"Did you think you wouldn't get caught? Even though I transferred $1,000 to Mom, only $50 reached her. And it's all because of you. Don't talk nonsense. Just hand over the debit card you're using for the financial support now."
Robert shouted and grabbed my bag, shaking it forcefully.
"Stop it. Pretending you don't know is useless."
On the day I went to Mom's house to see the transaction history, Mom had told me a story. Apparently, right after it was decided to provide financial support, Robert contacted her, saying they needed to change the bank account and handed her a new debit card. Mom, assuming that Robert and I had arranged everything, didn't tell me about it, which was understandable. Afterward, I discussed the situation with my friend Thomas, who works at a bank. Taking the matter seriously, Thomas helped uncover a shocking fact. The new bank account given to Mom was opened by Robert, who had been withdrawing the $1,000 I was sending to the original account. And into the new account, it seems only $50 was being deposited.
"It's terrible to deceive both Mom and me, pocketing my financial support for yourself. It's the same as theft or fraud. The $1,000 I earned working, I want the 3 months' worth back, right now."
Confronting Robert, he narrowed his eyes and glared at me. His worn-out t-shirt looked shabby, and his unkempt hair lacked cleanliness. It's no wonder his jobs never lasted. Whether his claim about his workplace shutting down is true remains doubtful. As Robert and I faced off, the sound of a car door opening and closing came from behind. Turning around, I saw Mom getting out of my car parked nearby. Today was supposed to be the day we went out for dinner together. We planned to meet outside and then leave again after I dropped off my things at home, but Mom came down first when she saw Robert in front of the apartment.
Is what you just said true?
Mom asked Robert with a cold voice.
Because Robert is here without any notice, I got curious and listened from the window. You gave me a debit card secretly from Nancy, stole the original card, and took the money for yourself.
Mom's calmly assertive demeanor was imposing, reflecting the wisdom of an experienced parent. Yet, Robert, without showing any fear or apology, blatantly stated, "What's the big deal?"
Both Mom and Nancy, why are you getting so worked up over just $1,000?
His unabashed attitude filled me with an indescribable rage.
Just $1,000. He has no idea how much effort I've put into earning that money through study and gaining trust at work. Mom has her old age pension, and you have a stable job as a civil servant. I don't have a job nor money. What's wrong with taking money from those who have it?
As Robert made his excuses, suddenly, Mom raised her voice.
Enough! How much more do you plan to disrespect your family?
The intensity of her anger made even me flinch.
How long will you trivialize your parents' money? Your sloppy lifestyle is his own business. As parents, we'll help if necessary. But to meddle with Nancy's money is beyond forgiveness. What's with that tone? Are you saying it's wrong for me to receive $1,000 and Nancy is the victim because she's a civil servant? Or because she's a woman? Isn't that discrimination?
Robert, becoming hysterical, ranted nonsensically.
That's not it. It's about keeping promises, returning what you borrow, basic decency.
Mom stood her ground, unflinchingly educating Robert.
It's not just this time. You also never repaid the compensation money for the divorce lawsuit we advanced on your behalf, despite promising to do so.
Perhaps the culmination of all the patience she had been storing up exploded, as Mom's eyes narrowed and her lips trembled with anger.
Compensation from the divorce trial.
I was taken aback by these sudden words. A story I had never heard from either Mom or Robert before. It was entirely new to me. Mom looked at me with a slightly awkward face and began, "Actually, I hadn't told you, Nancy, but when Robert got divorced before, there was compensation involved in the divorce trial. He seemed to have no money at the time, so we covered it, promising he'd pay us back. But years have gone by, and he hasn't repaid a cent.
There's no helping it if I don't have the money."
Glancing sideways at Robert's defiance, I timidly asked Mom,
Compensation in a divorce trial isn't normal, right? I thought they just split because they didn't get along. Could it be cheating?
Hearing this, Mom's eyebrows drooped deeply with disappointment, and she let out a heavy sigh. That's right. Robert had an affair, which led to the divorce. He even had the audacity to say terrible things to his wife, causing quite a mess. The compensation ended up being quite a sum. I felt profound contempt for Robert. Irresponsible with money, deceitful to family, and now adultery and causing trouble with his ex-wife. How far gone as a human can he be? It's too shameful for a family.
What? That's the worst. Mom, why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to worry you with such unpleasant news, Nancy. The compensation from the divorce trial wasn't an amount we couldn't cover.
I hoped he'd at least pay back half. Robert retorted, with his teeth clenched, at Mom, who glared at him.
Don't bring up the past. There's no way I can pay it back. You mean you have no intention of paying it back?
Mom's voice echoed definitively. As if saying there was nothing more to discuss, Mom pulled Robert by the arm, urging him to leave. Despite the age difference between a woman in her 60s and a man in his 30s, Mom's strength at that moment was formidable. I backed Mom up and pushed Robert towards leaving.
One last question, Robert. What did you spend the money you took from Nancy on?
When Mom questioned him, Robert answered nonchalantly.
On various things.
Living expenses, alcohol, gambling. Mom and I were furious to learn that precious family money was spent on alcohol and gambling.
That's enough. It was my fault for letting Robert be, thinking he's an adult. He didn't lose his job because the store closed down. He was fired for his poor attitude, something I'm well aware of. Now, even if it kills you, work and pay back the money you stole from Nancy.
Mom pushed Robert out onto the street and quickly got into the car with me, as if fleeing. Afterward, in the car I was driving, Mom was making calls. It seemed she was directly arranging a job for Robert. From the conversation, it was apparent it was a live-in job where he'd be kept busy from morning till night. Mom and I then went for the meal we had promised. Despite the unexpected events, Mom thoroughly enjoyed our meal at the restaurant. We were able to delve into the story around Robert's divorce. Learning about his affair that began from a drinking party and continued with dates, quickly discovered through phone records. Both of us were appalled anew at Robert, but the delicious meal helped lighten our mood. Steak that was perfectly cooked, and pot au feu with the flavors deeply infused. Every dish was delicious and wonderfully prepared. Our conversation eventually turned to brighter topics, such as places we wanted to visit and food we wanted to try, allowing us to end the day on a positive note. Then, a few weeks later, I heard from Mom. Apparently, Robert has been working non-stop at the live-in job from dawn till dusk. Mom had arranged with the employer not to let him return until he had repaid all the debts to his parents and the money he had taken from the financial support in full. In a workplace with many strict rules, being constantly monitored by a boss while working, Mom passionately explained that this was a chance to completely reshape Robert's twisted character and sloppy lifestyle from the ground up. Neither Mom nor I have been in direct contact with Robert, but from what we've heard, the stress of not being able to live his previously self-indulgent life has visibly drained the vitality from his face. Then, regarding the financial support, Mom said, "I really feel bad about accepting the money. I can manage with the old age pension and the savings." She strongly refused, leaving me, who wanted to help Mom, a bit troubled. But I can't stand not doing anything.
How about treating you to dinner once a month at that restaurant we went to? Well, I might indulge in that. That restaurant was really delicious. I've been wanting to go back. And you, save your money for your own future.
Mom's warm words deeply touched me. How could anyone deceive or steal from a parent who cares so much for us? My feelings haven't changed since I was a child. I want to make my parents happy, who raised me to be who I am. And so, I continued to have monthly meals with Mom, leading a peaceful life. It seems Robert has continued working at the job Mom arranged for him, slowly repaying the money he took. He also seems to be starting to repay the compensation money for the divorce trial that he owed Mom. I went to thank Thomas, who helped us through this ordeal, again. As an apology for the trouble, I invited him for a meal, and he readily agreed. I took Thomas to the restaurant Mom and I frequently visit. When I shared our story, Thomas was shocked and sympathetic.
It's unbelievable someone would misuse a bank account against their own family. I thought about cutting ties, but it seems he's managing somehow in the new job Mom arranged. Really, thank you for everything. The peaceful life Mom and I are living now might be thanks to you.
Thomas smiled bashfully at my words. Thomas, who works at a bank, is a well-put-together person, displaying proper manners at the dinner table. As we talked, we found our tastes in food matched. This restaurant is really nice. The atmosphere is calming, and both the pot au feu and steak are delicious.
Really? I often come here with Mom. We love the cuisine, it's one of our favorite places.
Thomas nodded with a serene expression as I said this.
Both you and your mom have great taste in food. If you like, let's come here again together.
And like that, we felt a good vibe between us, keeping in touch afterwards. As promised, we started going out together a few times.
When I mentioned this to Mom, she laughed.
It's strange how a good relationship formed because of that turmoil. Someday, Mom, Thomas, and I might have a meal together. No matter what the future holds, I want to fully support the important people close to me.
Hey, where are you now? The wedding is about to start.
I raised my voice to my husband Robert through the smartphone. Today is our beloved daughter, Rebecca's wedding day. Next to me stands Rebecca, clad in a pure white wedding dress. It's almost time for the guests to arrive, yet Robert, our son Daniel, my mother-in-law Samantha, and father-in-law Justin are not here. So, I had the phone on speaker, intending to ask Robert when he, along with Rebecca, would arrive at the venue.
Just yesterday, a flight got canceled, and I managed to get a really cheap ticket to Florida.
Robert's cheery words left me stunned. Does he have any idea how many hundreds of miles away Florida is? And the wedding is about to begin. It's Rebecca's wedding, no less. The in-laws have always prioritized the eldest son, indulging Daniel limitlessly while treating Rebecca somewhat dismissively. So, I had suspected they might not be too enthusiastic about attending today's wedding. But this is beyond what I could have imagined. This is beyond discussion. I'm at a loss for words. Disbelief. Disappointment. Emptiness. A myriad of emotions come and go.
Okay. Have fun then.
With just those words, I ended the call. What a thing to do on the day we celebrate Rebecca's wedding. How pitiful Robert and Daniel, as her father and brother, are. However, Rebecca smiles in her beautiful dress. Mom, we're going to start the wedding as planned. Rebecca smiles in her beautiful dress.
It's okay. It's not like I didn't expect this. Leave it to me.
I am Emily, a 50-year-old office worker. I live with my husband Robert of the same age, our 24-year-old son Daniel, and 23-year-old daughter Rebecca. Everyone in the family works and leads a busy life. My parents' house is about an hour's drive away, but Robert's parents live just a few minutes away on foot. When we got married, Robert argued that it would be easier to get help raising children if we lived closer to one set of parents, so we decided to buy a house here. In fact, Robert had initially proposed living together as if it were a given, but I opposed, and that's how we ended up with our current arrangement. I had no intention of quitting my job, and indeed, balancing work and home life would be challenging, but living with the in-laws would mean our family's own space wouldn't be secured. Frankly, the in-laws' place felt like Samantha's castle, a housewife's domain, and I knew living there would be fraught with difficulty. Justin and Samantha hold somewhat outdated views, believing that a woman should become a housewife upon marriage and that the eldest son is to be prioritized above all. So when I married Robert and chose not to quit my job, I frequently received snide remarks, and they repeatedly pressured me to give birth to a boy. I was relieved from the bottom of my heart that we didn't end up living together. About 6 months into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant, and when it was revealed that the baby was a boy, the joy of Justin, Samantha, and Robert was immense. Moreover, Samantha cheerfully offered,
Emily, you have work, right? Don't worry, I'll take care of the baby.
Samantha cheerfully offered. Despite having made countless snide remarks about my continuing to work post-marriage, her attitude changed unbelievably. Indeed, after giving birth, Samantha visited our home nearly every day. Her persistent zeal in looking after Daniel, staying for long hours, meant I couldn't relax, barely slept, and lived in constant discomfort. Even when Samantha came over, she focused solely on Daniel, barely doing any housework, which left me, fresh postpartum, to handle everything. I often thought it would be easier to be alone with the baby from the start, but confronting Samantha directly to tell her she was a nuisance was daunting, leaving me to continue my days in dissatisfaction. Because of this lifestyle, my breast milk dried up prematurely. Clearly, sleep deprivation and stress were to blame. At first, I was devastated. Breastfeeding was a happy time for me, an important moment of bonding with the baby without Samantha's interference. However, I decided to look on the bright side. After all, one of the worries about leaving the child is that they might not accept anything but breast milk. Before Daniel was born, it was already agreed that Samantha would look after him, and I thought it would be easier to go to work than having her come over every day. So, taking advantage of the situation, I returned to my job 2 months postpartum. As a working parent, I was grateful for the childcare. Looking for a daycare center is hard, and the fees are no joke. But here, just a stone's throw away, I could leave him for practically a thank you note. This was clearly a great arrangement. So, I gratefully entrusted Daniel to them, but gradually, I began to feel uneasy. Daniel would spend all day at my in-laws, only coming home to sleep. When I went to pick him up after work,
It's still fine, isn't it?
they wouldn't let him go, which was expected, and even on my days off, they'd come over and take Daniel away.
I'm watching him, Emily. You rest.
Samantha's attachment to Daniel was obvious, as if she was trying to take him away from me. And it wasn't just my imagination, as I realized after giving birth to Rebecca, who is 1 year younger than Daniel. Once Rebecca was born and I went back to work, both children were left at my in-laws, but it was clear they were treated differently. Samantha was always with Daniel, barely paying any attention to Rebecca, who was just left lying in her crib. When I came to pick them up, she wouldn't let go of Daniel, but with Rebecca,
Why don't you take her home?
she'd say. Even if Rebecca cried, she wouldn't try to soothe her, prioritizing Daniel's play with toys instead. This disparity couldn't just be because Daniel could talk or because Rebecca was still an infant. My in-laws and Robert spoil Daniel, calling him the precious heir endlessly. As for my daughter Rebecca, they're practically indifferent, treating her like heir, and when they do talk to her, it's only to tell her to follow Daniel's lead. Whenever the siblings fight, Rebecca is the one who gets scolded, regardless of the reason or cause. Daniel always comes first. If he wants something of Rebecca's, my in-laws take it from her to give to him. They revered Daniel, the eldest son, like a religion, forcing Rebecca to be subservient and sacrificial. This has been the case since they were young and hasn't changed as they've grown. Of course, I thought this way of raising them was wrong, so I've repeatedly tried to discuss it with Robert. I wanted them to treat both children equally, and to convey that to my in-laws. But Robert wouldn't listen. Instead, he'd say,
Daniel is the eldest son, so it's only natural.
Being an only child and the eldest son himself, Robert was raised to believe he was king, thinking such treatment is normal. He believes the eldest son should be favored in everything and that it's natural for women to follow men, so there's nothing wrong with Daniel being prioritized in every way. No matter how much I explained, he couldn't understand, and I was shocked by his insistence and the lack of doubt in his beliefs. I thought Robert was confident and reliable, someone who valued his parents, which is why I decided to marry him. But it turned out that his confidence wasn't backed by effort but by unfounded pride, making him just a mama's boy. I regret not realizing this immaturity in myself before getting married. Knowing this couldn't continue, I tried to separate Daniel and Rebecca from my in-laws. I told them it was fine because the childcare center could look after them until I finished work, and I actually enrolled them. But because Samantha wanted to pick them up, Robert contacted the childcare center without my knowledge, allowing Samantha to take the children home while I was at work. Moreover, she tried to take only Daniel back, leaving Rebecca at the childcare center, causing trouble with the center and leading to us being asked to refrain from using their services, saying,
"If you have someone else to take care of them, please don't use the childcare center."
The same happened with the after-school care at the elementary school. Ultimately, we couldn't use it because Samantha insisted on taking care of Daniel. However, I had hoped that as they got older, they'd be able to stay home alone and wouldn't need to go to my in-laws anymore. My in-laws kept spoiling Daniel to keep him close. They would lure him with sweet words and things he wanted, making me and Rebecca out to be the bad guys, instilling in Daniel that his allies were my in-laws and Robert. Growing up in such an environment, Daniel was heavily influenced by my in-laws and Robert. He would demand anything he wanted from them, and they would comply, while increasingly looking down on me and Rebecca. His demands towards us were in a commanding tone. If his requests were not met, he would throw tantrums. If I refused Daniel's demands or scolded him, he would immediately seek help from Robert or my in-laws. Eventually, Daniel grew up without much job hunting effort and entered the same company as Robert, thanks to Robert's arrangement. Robert proudly said he had personally asked the president, but I was worried whether Daniel could fulfill his job responsibilities properly. In stark contrast, Rebecca thoroughly researched her industry, visited various companies, and eventually received an offer from a company where she could do the job she wanted. Interestingly, my in-laws only gave a brand-name suit and shoes to Daniel as a graduation gift. Nothing for Rebecca. Not even a congratulations. Having seen how hard Rebecca worked, I sincerely told her well done and congratulations. Then we celebrated by eating something delicious, and bought her a commuting bag. I thought her efforts and their results deserved praise. By this point, Rebecca was used to the disparity from my in-laws and seemed not to care, but as a parent, it was still hard to accept that my children were being treated so differently. A few years after Rebecca became a working adult, it was decided she would marry her colleague, William. William seemed like a kind person who would cherish Rebecca, and her smile was serene when they looked at each other, assuring me they would build a happy family. The young couple had carefully planned their wedding, choosing a venue within their budget that met their desires. As their parent, I barely needed to be involved, only asking if there was anything I could help with. Interestingly, Robert, Daniel, and my in-laws seemed to have little interest in Rebecca's wedding. I don't know the details since Rebecca handled the invitations, but from her saying, "I've invited them," without further comments, I could guess it was the usual attitude. It's pitiful that they show so little interest in the wedding of a beloved daughter. Lately, I've been thinking I should have divorced sooner. Divorce is said to be difficult, and I couldn't bring myself to make a significant change, but their attitude is disrespectful to Rebecca and William. I'll support Rebecca as much as possible so she can start her new life happily. On the day of Rebecca's wedding, the venue was an exclusive one that limited to one couple per day. Although the ceremony was in the afternoon, the bride and groom had to prepare from the morning, so I was in charge of welcoming guests, making arrangements, and greeting friends who helped. As the mother of the bride, it was natural. I wanted to do at least this much since the two had prepared everything themselves so far. Although I arrived early to get ready, being able to understand the venue and see Rebecca in her beautiful dress first were perks I enjoyed. As I was busily yet joyfully preparing, Robert, Daniel, and my in-laws had not shown up, even when it was almost time to receive guests. They had no specific roles, so it was fine for them to arrive with the other guests, but as family, I had hoped at least Robert and Daniel would be on the welcoming side.
"Mom,"
Rebecca, dressed in her wedding gown, approached me in the dressing room area.
"have Dad and the others arrived?"
They haven't. Should I call them? I need to go and welcome the guests soon. It's frustrating that on a day like this, they can't even act like proper parents. I take out my smartphone and call Robert. I put it on speaker so Rebecca can hear as well. The phone rings. A sense of relief washes over me that the call goes through.
Hello? Where are you right now? The ceremony is about to start. In Florida, why? What?
What did he just say? Florida?
Just yesterday, a flight got canceled, and I managed to get a really cheap ticket, so we're in Florida.
Robert says cheerfully. Yesterday? Today is Rebecca's wedding.
Today's Saturday, right? We're staying in Florida until Monday. We've taken the day off. Who's we there? My dad, Mom, and Daniel.
The Monday off was supposed to be for seeing off William's parents. They live far away and came here for the wedding. We couldn't have a family meeting before the wedding, so we planned to have lunch together afterward to deepen our relationship.
So you knew today was the wedding and still went to Florida. Daniel wanted to go since we managed to get the flight. What else were we supposed to do, right? Right, Daniel.
Rebecca sighs heavily at her father's words.
Never mind.
She murmurs, looking up to the sky. Since I had the speaker on, everyone around could hear the conversation, causing the staff to start murmuring among themselves. If they're in Florida now, there's no way they can make it to the wedding. Rebecca asks a nearby attendant to call the wedding planner, likely to inform them that Robert and the others won't be coming, to cause such inconvenience and stress to the bride right before her wedding.
Jealous? We're on a family trip to Florida.
Robert's high spirits can be heard, with Daniel laughing in the background. It was clear who Robert's family referred to. Obviously, Rebecca and I weren't included. Something inside me snapped.
Okay. Have fun then.
With just those words, I end the call. This is beyond discussion. I'm at a loss for words. Disbelief. Disappointment. Emptiness. Various emotions ebb and flow. Mom, let's start the ceremony as planned. Rebecca says. As planned. With the family seats empty.
It's okay. It's not like I didn't expect this. Leave it to me.
Rebecca smiles in her beautiful dress. I feel sorry, yet incredibly proud. Rebecca is my pride. The ceremony and reception proceed without the bride's brother, father, and paternal grandparents. There were moments when the groom's side and other guests seemed unsettled by their absence, but the couple moved forward with happy smiles.
Next, we have a letter from the bride, Rebecca.
The lights dim in the venue, focusing a spotlight on Rebecca.
Thank you for joining us on our special day.
Rebecca begins, her voice clear and strong, holding the letter in her hand. First, I'd like to address the empty seats on my family's side. My father, brother, and paternal grandparents are not present, for which I am deeply sorry. I truly apologize. The room goes silent with her apology. Those close to me know this, but I was not acknowledged by them growing up. I did invite them and received their RSVP, but they went to Florida yesterday. They told me just before the wedding that they'd be there until Monday. The room buzzes with whispers at the revelation. It's an unbelievable situation for many. It's painful to make Rebecca speak of such things at a celebration.
However, I saw this as an opportunity to share the truth with you all. After all, it's clear who's out of touch with common sense, right?
Rebecca's light-hearted comment brings a soft laughter from the audience. Her adorable demeanor slightly lightens the mood. I'm simply amazed at how Rebecca can express herself so confidently and influence the atmosphere of the venue. Despite growing up close to such a father and grandparents, she never absorbed their negativity and grew into a woman with her own strong core.
They always looked down on my mother and me, and we were treated coldly. It hurt when I was younger. But my mother always protected me.
Rebecca looks at me. I thought I was protecting her, but now I realize I was the one being protected. Having Rebecca by my side is what kept me going.
I've talked a lot, but now I'll read the letter I prepared. I finished writing this letter by yesterday, intending to read it with the family seats filled. Please listen with that in mind.
Rebecca opens the letter she's holding. William is standing beside her, looking at Rebecca tenderly, as if to support her. Rebecca's voice fills the room as she begins to read slowly. After expressing her gratitude to the attendees and the joy of getting married, she takes a breath and continues reading.
I've written down the thanks I usually can't express. Please listen. Mom, I've always seen how busy you were with work and household chores since I was a child. You've always been there for me, and I never felt lonely. The nutritious and delicious meals you cooked, being able to talk about makeup and fashion, Mom, you're the most reliable and admirable woman I know. Long before I could even remember, my dad's parents and my dad would often say to me, it would have been better if you were born a boy, if you had to be unnecessary, at least be useful to your older brother. But every time, Mom, you'd hug me and say, Rebecca is my treasure. Let's find lots of things you love and enjoy them together. Even though Grandma and Grandpa were harsh to you, you always smiled for me, and I'm truly grateful and admire you for that. Because of all the love you poured into me, no matter how badly my dad's parents, my dad, and my brother treated or said to me, I could always remember joy and kindness. Thank you so much. No matter how many times I say it, it's not enough. I love and appreciate you deeply. From now on, I'll protect you, Mom. I'll return the love you gave me, filled with even more love. The only family I could ever call mine has always been you, Mom. Now that I'm married, my family will grow. Let's enjoy and be happy together, Mom.
Rebecca's radiant smile made me tear up. Grateful for how kind she has grown. She expressed her thanks to me, but having Rebecca has been my strength. I hope she finds much happiness with her husband and, someday, their children, expanding the precious family she cherishes. That would be the best way she could return my love. Warm applause filled the room as Rebecca finished reading the letter. The wedding was reaching its climax, with the last task being to see off the guests. The bride and groom, along with their parents, were the first to leave the venue for the farewell.
Mom, how was the letter?
As we found our places following the staff's directions, Rebecca asked me this. I was happy. I've gained another treasure.
I packed all my sincerity into it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I had planned to read it in front of those who aren't here today.
Yes. Rebecca had said that initially. The letter was written assuming Robert and the others would be attending. What would have happened if they truly had been there? I had already told everything to William's parents beforehand. I thought we might cause trouble, and I was planning to read this letter from the start. Through Rebecca and William, his parents smiled at me. It must have been hard.
If there's anything we can do, please let us know through Rebecca.
Their kind words warmed my heart. I hadn't expected to be understood like this. Busy with work and home, I struggled through suffocating days, focusing solely on protecting Rebecca and not bending to injustice. Never thinking to change the situation or ask for help. Maybe the world is kinder than I thought. Rebecca made me see that. Thank you. I truly am a happy mother. During the farewells, everyone, while leaving, voiced their dissatisfaction and complaints about Robert and my in-laws. Especially Rebecca's friends, who praised her, saying,
You did great.
Some even cried. It seems Rebecca had shared her family situation with her close friends, who sympathized with her struggles. They were prepared to back Rebecca up if anything happened during the reception. Surrounded by such wonderful friends, Rebecca is indeed fortunate. And to me, everyone offered comforting words and support. Despite revealing scandalous family dynamics, hardly anyone reacted as if they were handling a hot potato. Everyone was just so kind. Surely, it's Rebecca and William's good nature that has brought these wonderful people together. I'm proud of my Rebecca and thankful for William, a wonderful person. This wedding couldn't have been happier for me. I'm filled with gratitude towards Rebecca.
What did you say to Mr. Martinez, my manager?
After seeing off Rebecca's in-laws on Monday and parting ways with Rebecca and her family, Robert called my smartphone. As soon as I answered, he blurted out that line.
What are you talking about? Why are Daniel and I on house arrest?
It seems Robert was angry, but this house arrest couldn't possibly be my fault, so I sighed, expecting another baseless accusation or venting. Well, I had heard some of it from Mr. Martinez.
Didn't Mr. Martinez explain the reason? So it was you. You really went and told him unnecessary things. You weren't at Rebecca's wedding, were you? There's nothing to tell. Why did you invite him? He lives nearby and has always been helpful. Mr. Martinez's youngest daughter is friends with Rebecca, so it's not strange at all.
The Martinez family, Robert and Daniel's manager, lives in our neighborhood. Robert, who does nothing at home, wouldn't know, but Mr. Martinez and his wife actively participate in community activities like wedding, festivals, and children's events. I often had the chance to talk to them. Above all, it was Rebecca who decided to invite Mr. Martinez and his wife to the wedding. Now I understand, it was to make Mr. Martinez aware of Robert and Daniel's true nature, especially after the letter incident. After the wedding, Mr. Martinez was furious with Robert and Daniel. Not only did he learn about their treatment towards me and Rebecca, but their absence from the wedding and trip to Florida was
unacceptable,
he said, promising to report it to the company president. Apparently, Robert and Daniel don't have a good reputation within the company. There are rumors of them dismissing women's opinions in meetings or behaving rudely towards female colleagues. But no formal complaints have been filed yet. Where there's smoke, there's fire, but the truth hasn't been revealed. It's possible they've been quashing these issues using their positions. Especially Robert, who could easily intimidate younger employees or use his influence to bury problems. Mr. Martinez realized this might be an issue of their character. Even without a formal position, Daniel's actions could become a serious matter, but Robert has subordinates. For someone in a leadership position to engage in regressive behaviors is intolerable, according to Mr. Martinez. The company president has publicly declared zero tolerance for personal attacks or gender discrimination, so some form of disciplinary action against Robert and Daniel seems likely.
What the hell am I supposed to do now? It's your own fault, isn't it? What? Who do you think you're talking to? No one else but you. Where are you now, anyway? I just got off the plane. And now I'm getting calls from Mr. Martinez when I'm just about to head home.
From Robert's words, I could tell they'd be home in about an hour. I felt relieved I had packed up and left.
Rebecca is moving to her new place, and I'm going back to my parents' house. Back to your parents? I left the divorce papers on the table for you to sign. What? You'll hear from the lawyer later. Please take care. Hey!
I hung up without listening to the rest of Robert's words. Rebecca took action, and we were able to expose the misdeeds of her father and my in-laws. I've decided I won't tolerate it any longer. I'm going to live freely and happily from now on. Later, I got a call from Mrs. Martinez and heard the whole story. An internal investigation at the company revealed that Robert and Daniel frequently demeaned women. The company president, upon learning about the wedding incident, stated,
I cannot trust someone who doesn't cherish their family,
resulting in Robert and Daniel's demotion and salary reduction. It was entirely their own doing. Right after the sanctions were issued, Robert called me.
You've caused a lot of trouble because of you.
Again, he tried to shift the blame and vent his frustration. It was so tiresome and predictable.
Didn't you realize it's your own fault? Did you submit the divorce papers? I never said we're getting a divorce.
I had expected complaints from Robert. My in-laws and Robert always cared about public image, preferring to hide and lie about unsightly truths. But this time, it was futile. Mrs. Martinez told me that the neighborhood was already buzzing with the story of Rebecca's wedding.
I'll ask the lawyer, and there's no option but divorce for us. You'll also be compensating. Compensation! Why? For the years of mental anguish. I don't have that kind of money. You're working, aren't you?
We split the household expenses, with Robert covering the house-related costs and me the daily living expenses. I didn't know how much savings he had, but I assumed he earned enough. After all, we both worked. It turns out he had been squandering any available funds on things like a new car for Daniel, expensive suits, and trips with my in-laws. So, he didn't want a divorce, likely because he was counting on my income.
That's ridiculous. Emily, reconsider the divorce, will you? Don't call me by my name, it's creepy. What? I'm definitely getting a divorce. And I'll take the compensation. Be prepared.
With that, I ended the call. It took some time, but the divorce was finalized, and I got the compensation. Through the lawyer, we conveyed,
if you don't agree to the divorce, we'll go to court.
And quickly reached an agreement for an uncontested divorce. They probably wanted to avoid the social stigma of a drawn-out legal battle. Afterward, Robert and Daniel, feeling unwelcome at the company, eventually resigned. Robert, needing to cover living expenses and compensation, is now juggling part-time jobs. With limited earnings and needing to reduce expenses, he sold the house and moved in with his parents along with Daniel. Pampered and prideful, Daniel retreated from the humiliation and mockery from colleagues and friends, becoming a shut-in, not working at all. The downfall of their precious son and grandson shocked and bedridden my husband's parents. It was entirely their own fault. Meanwhile, Rebecca is expecting, soon to enter her final month of pregnancy. I'm already looking forward to the day my grandchild is born. The baby, a boy, won't be meeting or even knowing about Robert and the others, as Rebecca decided. It's an unavoidable decision. As for me, after initially staying with my parents, I've rented an apartment near my work for independent living. With newfound freedom, I've taken up gym membership and frequently host Rebecca and her husband. I'm leading a fulfilled life, finding joy in each day. My life still holds many more enjoyable moments ahead.